One quiet night inside the Golden Crest Hotel, just seconds after a billionaire was cornered by 5 armed men, a black maid named McKenna did something no one expected. In less than 60 seconds, she shattered the rules of fear, rewrote her destiny, and left the entire world speechless. What she did next didn't just save a life. It went viral across the globe. But months before that moment, McKenna lived a life most people never noticed. She woke up at 4 in the morning, every single day. No alarm needed. Her body just knew. She'd stand in front of a cracked mirror in her tiny apartment, tie her hair back, and put on the same uniform she'd worn 1,000 times before. Dark blue, stiff fabric. A name tag that said McKenna in letters too small for anyone to read from a distance. By 5:30, she was already inside the Golden Crest Hotel, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies down hallways that cost more per night than she made in a month. She scrubbed toilets, she changed sheets, she wiped down mirrors smudged by people who never looked her in the eye. To the guests, she was invisible. A shadow. A pair of hands that made their mess disappear. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. McKenna didn't mind being invisible. She told herself she preferred it, because being seen meant being remembered, and being remembered meant questions. Questions about where she came from, questions about the scars she kept hidden under long sleeves, questions about why a woman with her skills was scrubbing floors instead of doing something else. Something dangerous. But she buried that part of herself years ago. She left it behind in another country, in another life, in a place where survival meant knowing how to fight and when to run. She'd promised herself she was done with that world, done with violence, done with chaos. She just wanted peace. And for a while, she had it. Until the night a billionaire named Alexander Cross walked into her life and smiled at her like she mattered. At first, she didn't trust it. Rich people didn't smile at maids unless they wanted something, but Alexander was different. He asked her name. He asked if she'd eaten. He stopped in hallways just to say good morning, and every time he did, something inside her softened. Something she thought had died a long time ago. She started to believe maybe she could have a normal life. Maybe she could be safe. Maybe the past would stay buried. But the past never stays buried, not when it has teeth. And on one cold February night, when McKenna stepped into Alexander's penthouse suite carrying fresh towels, she found him standing in the center of the room, barefoot, wearing nothing but a towel around his waist, surrounded by 5 men in black masks holding guns. The door slammed shut behind her. Alexander's eyes locked onto hers. Terrified, desperate, helpless. One of the masked men turned toward her and tilted, his head, like he was amused, like he was curious what she'd do next. And in that moment, McKenna realized something that made her blood run cold. The first threat wasn't the gunman. It was the billionaire who smiled at her. 3 months before that night, McKenna was wiping down the elevator panel on the 32nd floor when Alexander Cross stepped inside. She didn't look up. She never did. Looking up meant eye contact. Eye contact meant conversation. Conversation meant being remembered. And being remembered in a place like the Golden Crest was dangerous for someone like her. But Alexander didn't step around her like everyone else did. He stopped, right next to her. She felt his presence before she heard his voice. Expensive cologne, clean suit. The kind of silence that rich people carry because they're never in a hurry. "You always work this hard?" he asked. His voice was soft, gentle, not commanding, not entitled, just curious. McKenna paused. Her hand hovered over the panel. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Tall, dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that didn't look through her like she was furniture, eyes that actually saw her. "Only when I'm awake," she said quietly. Alexander laughed, not loud, not fake, a real laugh, like what she said actually surprised him. "That's every day then," he said. She didn't respond. She finished wiping the panel and stepped back, keeping her head down. The elevator doors opened. He walked out. She thought that was the end of it. But the next morning, he was waiting in the lobby when she clocked in. "Morning, McKenna," he said. She froze. He knew her name. How did he know her name? She looked down at her name tag. The letters were so small. He must have leaned in close to read it. "Morning," she mumbled, then kept walking. Over the next few weeks, it kept happening. He'd say good morning. He'd ask if she'd eaten. He'd tell her to take a break. He'd stop in hallways just to check on her. At first, she thought it was manipulation. Rich people didn't care about maids unless they wanted something. But Alexander never asked for anything. He never made her uncomfortable. He never crossed a line. He just cared. And that terrified her. Because people who care ask questions, and questions lead to truths, and truths lead to places McKenna couldn't afford to go. When was the last time someone looked at you like you mattered? When was the last time someone asked if you were okay and actually waited for the answer? Most people don't. Most people walk past. Maybe that's why kindness feels so rare. Maybe that's why it's so dangerous. One afternoon, McKenna was scrubbing the marble floor near the penthouse suites when Alexander walked past with his assistant. They were talking about meetings, investors, deals worth millions. But when Alexander saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. "Take a break," he said. "You've been on your feet all day." His assistant looked confused, annoyed even. Like Alexander was wasting time. McKenna shook her head. "I'm fine." "You're not," Alexander said firmly. "Sit for 5 minutes, please." She looked up at him, really looked at him this time, and what she saw made her chest tighten. He wasn't trying to control her. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He genuinely cared if she was tired, if she was okay, if she was human. And that was the moment McKenna realized she was in trouble. Because kindness from a man like Alexander Cross came with consequences. People noticed. People whispered. People wondered why a billionaire cared about a maid. And someone else was noticing too. She felt it before she saw it. Eyes on her. Not Alexander's, someone else's. Cold eyes, watching from across the lobby, from the corners of hallways, from the shadows near the service elevators. At first she thought she was being paranoid, old instincts kicking in, but instincts don't lie. Someone was following Alexander, and now, because of his kindness, they were watching her too. One night, as she left the hotel through the back exit, she saw a black car parked across the street. Engine off, windows tinted, just sitting there. She kept walking, didn't look back, didn't panic, but her heart knew. Whatever danger Alexander was in, it was getting closer, and it wasn't just coming for him, someone with far darker intentions than admiration. 2 weeks later, McKenna stepped onto the 33rd floor and stopped. Something was wrong. The Golden Crest Hotel was never quiet. Not like this. At 8 o'clock on a Friday night, the hallways should have been alive. Guests laughing, room service carts rolling, doors opening and closing, the hum of expensive lives moving at full speed. But tonight, the 33rd floor was silent. Completely silent. McKenna stood in the hallway, holding a stack of fresh towels against her chest. Her heartbeat picked up. Not panic. Not yet. Just awareness. The kind of awareness that kept her alive in places most people never survived. She listened. No footsteps, no voices. Not even the soft buzz of the ice machine down the hall. The air felt heavy. Wrong. Like the entire floor was holding its breath. She took a step forward. Her shoes made no sound on the thick carpet. She looked left, then right. Every door was closed. Every hallway was empty. Her eyes lifted to the security camera mounted near the elevator. The small red light that was always blinking wasn't blinking anymore. The screen flickered, static, like someone had tampered with it. McKenna's grip tightened on the towels. Cameras don't just stop working. Not in a hotel like this. Not unless someone wanted them to. She reached for the radio clipped to her belt. Her thumb hovered over the call button. She could radio security. Tell them something felt off. Let them handle it. But before she pressed it, the radio crackled to life on its own. A voice came through. Calm. Professional. The night supervisor. McKenna, Penthouse 3 requested fresh towels. Deliver them now. Penthouse 3. Alexander's suite. Her stomach dropped. She pressed the button. Copy that. But her hand was shaking. Have you ever walked into a place and just knew something bad was about to happen? Not because you saw anything. Not because you heard anything. But because every instinct in your body was screaming at you to turn around and run? That's what fear feels like when it's real. McKenna walked toward the elevator. Each step felt heavier than the last. She told herself she was overreacting. Told herself Alexander probably just wanted clean towels. Told herself the silence didn't mean anything. But her body knew better. She stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the penthouse floor. The doors slid shut. The elevator hummed as it climbed. She stared at her reflection in the polished steel doors. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair tied back tight. Uniform wrinkled from a 10-hour shift. She looked tired. She looked small. She looked exactly like someone no one would ever suspect. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. The penthouse hallway was even quieter than the 33rd floor. The lights were dimmer. The air colder. McKenna stepped out slowly. Her instincts were screaming now, louder, sharper, telling her to leave, telling her to run. But she didn't. She couldn't. Because if Alexander was in danger, no one else would know. No one else would check. No one else would care. She walked down the hall toward Penthouse 3. Her footsteps were silent, her breathing steady. She reached the door, and that's when she noticed it. The door wasn't locked. It wasn't even closed all the way. It hung open, just a crack, maybe an inch, enough to see darkness inside, enough to know something was very, very wrong. Luxury guests never left their doors unlocked. Never. McKenna's pulse hammered in her ears. She knocked softly. Housekeeping. No answer. She knocked again. Louder this time. Mr. Cole? Still nothing. She pressed her palm against the door, pushed it open. Slowly. Carefully. The suite was dark. Too dark. The curtains were drawn. The lights were off, but she could see shapes, furniture, shadows. And then her eyes adjusted. And she saw him. Alexander stood in the middle of the room, barefoot, wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, his chest rising and falling fast, his eyes wide, terrified. He wasn't alone. 5 men stood around him, dressed in black, faces covered with masks, guns raised, boots crunching on shattered glass, silent, controlled, deadly. Alexander's eyes locked onto hers, his mouth opened, like he wanted to scream, like he wanted to warn her. But before he could say anything, the door slammed shut behind her. She was trapped, and one of the masked men turned toward her. Slowly, like he had all the time in the world, he tilted his head and said 3 words that made her blood freeze. Look what walked in. McKenna didn't know it yet, but that single delivery, that one moment of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, would push her straight into the center of the deadliest night of her life. McKenna's breath caught in her throat. The door clicked shut behind her. Locked. She heard the bolt slide into place. Automatic. Like someone had rigged it to trap anyone who walked in. Her eyes darted across the room. 5 men, all armed, all silent, all staring at her now. Alexander stood frozen in the center of the suite. His hands were raised slightly, not surrendering, just trying not to get shot. His chest was bare except for the towel wrapped around his waist. His hair was wet, like he'd just stepped out of the shower. He'd been ambushed, and now she was part of it. One of the masked men stepped forward, tall, broad shoulders, gun held low but ready. He moved like someone who'd done this before, someone trained, someone dangerous. "Who's this?" he asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. Another man answered. "Maid. She just walked in." The tall one tilted his head, like he was deciding whether she was a problem or an opportunity. "Bad timing," he said. McKenna didn't move, didn't speak. Her mind was racing, calculating, measuring distances, counting weapons, identifying exits, old instincts kicking in, instincts she thought she'd buried. Alexander's eyes met hers, desperate, terrified. He mouthed one word, "Run," but she couldn't. The door was locked, the men were armed, and even if she could run, where would she go? They'd shoot her before she made it 2 steps, so she stayed still, kept her face blank, kept her breathing steady. The tall man stepped closer, close enough that she could see his eyes through the mask. Dark, cold, empty. "You picked the wrong night to show up," he said. McKenna's grip tightened on the towels she was still holding. Her knuckles turned white. "I'm just here to deliver towels," she said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. She wouldn't let it. The man laughed, low, mocking. "Just here to deliver towels," he repeated. "You hear that?" The other men chuckled, like this was entertaining, like she was a joke. But McKenna wasn't scared anymore. Not the way they expected. Fear was sharp. Fear was loud. This was something else. Something colder. Something she'd learned a long time ago in a place where hesitation meant death. Have you ever walked into a situation you couldn't walk away from, where every choice led to the same terrible outcome, where staying meant danger and leaving meant death? That's the moment when you realize survival isn't about luck. It's about decisions. And McKenna had already made hers. One of the other men spoke. Younger voice, nervous. "What do we do with her?" The tall man didn't answer right away. He studied McKenna, like he was trying to figure her out, trying to see if she was a threat. She kept her face blank, kept her body relaxed, gave him nothing. Finally, he shrugged. "Tie her up. We'll deal with her after." 2 men moved toward her. One grabbed her arm. Rough, hard. She didn't resist. Alexander shouted, "Don't touch her!" The tall man turned toward him, raised his gun, pointed it directly at Alexander's chest. "Shut up," he said, "or I'll blow a hole through you right now." Alexander froze. His jaw clenched, his fists shook. The 2 men yanked McKenna toward the corner of the room. One of them pulled zip ties from his pocket, started wrapping them around her wrists, and that's when McKenna felt it. The shift. The moment when her body stopped being the body of a maid and became something else, something sharper, something deadly. Her breathing slowed, her muscles coiled, her mind went quiet. The man tightening the zip ties didn't notice. He was careless, confident. He thought she was harmless. Mistake. McKenna's eyes flicked to Alexander one last time. He was watching her, still terrified, still helpless. But then he saw something in her eyes, something that made him go still, because McKenna wasn't scared anymore. She was calculating, and the men in that room had no idea what they'd just walked into. The tall man turned back toward Alexander, raised his gun again. "Now," he said, "let's talk about why we're really here." But before he could say another word, McKenna moved. Fast. Faster than anyone expected. She twisted her wrists, snapped the zip tie, grabbed the man beside her by the collar and slammed her knee into his ribs so hard he collapsed. The room exploded. The man she kneed collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. His gun clattered across the marble, loud, sharp. Everyone turned. For a split second, the room froze. The other 4 men stared at her, shocked, confused, like they couldn't process what just happened. But McKenna didn't freeze. She couldn't, because freezing meant dying. The nearest attacker lunged toward her, fast, trained. He wasn't some random thug. He moved like military, like someone who'd done this 100 times, but so had she. He swung his fist toward her face. She ducked, twisted. Her body moved on instinct. Muscle memory she thought she'd forgotten. Muscle memory she'd spent years trying to bury. She grabbed his wrist mid-swing, twisted it backward, hard. The crack echoed through the suite. He screamed. She didn't stop. Her elbow slammed into his jaw. His head snapped back. His knees buckled. He dropped. 2 down, 3 left. Alexander stood frozen against the wall, his eyes wide, his mouth open, like he was watching someone he didn't recognize, because he was. The tall man who'd been in charge raised his gun, pointed it at her chest. "Don't move," he barked. McKenna's eyes locked onto his, cold, steady, unafraid. She didn't say anything, didn't need to. Her body did the talking. She shifted her weight, heel pivoting, knees bent, hands loose at her sides, ready. The tall man's finger twitched on the trigger, but before he could fire, McKenna kicked the coffee table between them. It flew forward, slammed into his shins. He stumbled. The gun fired into the ceiling. Plaster exploded. Dust rained down. McKenna closed the distance. In 2 steps. She grabbed the gun, twisted it out of his hands, drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over. She slammed the butt of the gun into the back of his head. He dropped like a stone. 3 down, 2 left. The 4th man charged from her left. She spun, blocked his punch with her forearm, countered with a strike to his throat. He choked, staggered back. She didn't give him time to recover. She swept his legs. He crashed onto his back. She drove her heel into his ribs. Once. Twice. He stopped moving. 4 down. 1 left. The last man wasn't attacking. He was backing toward the door. Hands raised, gun shaking. "Who the hell are you?" he whispered. McKenna didn't answer. She stepped forward. Slow. Deliberate. He fired. The bullet whizzed past her shoulder, missed by inches. She didn't flinch. She closed the gap. Knocked the gun from his hand, grabbed him by the collar, slammed him into the wall so hard the mirror behind him cracked. He slumped to the floor. Unconscious. 5 down. The suite went silent. McKenna stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, heart pounding. Blood on her knuckles. Bodies scattered around her like broken toys. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking now. Not from fear, from adrenaline. From the part of her she swore she'd never let out again. Alexander stared at her, his face pale, his chest rising and falling fast. "McKenna," he whispered, "what did you just do?" She didn't look at him. Couldn't. Because if she looked at him, she'd see the truth in his eyes, that he didn't know her, that he never had. "I didn't have a choice," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but inside everything was falling apart, because the fire she thought she'd buried wasn't buried at all. It was still there, waiting, ready, and now it was awake. Alexander stepped toward her, slowly, like she was a wild animal he didn't want to startle. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was soft, scared. McKenna finally looked at him, and for the first time since she met him, she let him see the truth. "Someone who shouldn't be here," she said. Before Alexander could respond, one of the men on the floor groaned. The tall one. The leader. He coughed. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. His eyes fluttered open. He looked at McKenna, then at Alexander, and then he whispered something that made Alexander's face go white. A single word. A name. Elias. Alexander froze. McKenna frowned. "Who's Elias?" Alexander didn't answer. He couldn't, because Elias was his middle name, a name almost nobody knew, a name only family used, and the only person who still called him that was someone who wanted him dead. McKenna saw the realization hit him, saw the horror spread across his face. "Alexander," she said sharply. "Who's Elias?" He swallowed hard, his voice cracked. "My brother." The words hung in the air like poison. McKenna's blood ran cold. Because if Alexander's own brother sent these men, then this wasn't random. This wasn't robbery. This was family. And family didn't send 5 armed men unless they wanted someone dead. The tall man on the floor coughed again, smiled through the blood. "He said no witnesses," he whispered. McKenna's heart stopped. Because if she didn't finish what she'd started, if she didn't get Alexander out of this suite right now, none of them would survive the next minute. 47 seconds. That's how long it took McKenna to take down 5 armed men. 47 seconds that rewrote everything Alexander thought he knew about the quiet maid who cleaned his floors. He stood against the wall, barefoot, half-dressed, watching her like she was someone who'd stepped out of a movie, out of a nightmare, out of a life he didn't understand. She moved like water, like violence had a rhythm and she knew every beat. The first man she dropped was still groaning on the floor. The second was clutching his broken wrist. The third was unconscious. The fourth was curled up, gasping for air. The fifth was slumped against the wall, eyes closed, blood on his face. And McKenna stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, fists clenched, eyes sharp, alive. Alexander had seen fights before, bar brawls, street scuffles, bodyguards handling drunk guests, but this wasn't a fight. This was destruction, controlled, calculated, lethal, and it came from a woman who smiled at him every morning and asked if he'd slept well. "McKenna," he whispered again. His voice barely worked. She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and the hardness in her eyes softened, just a little, just enough for him to see the person underneath the violence. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "You weren't supposed to see this." "See what?" Alexander's voice cracked. "What are you?" She didn't answer, because she didn't know how to explain, didn't know how to tell him that the woman he thought he knew was a lie, a mask, a role she played to survive. The real McKenna was someone he'd never met, someone dangerous, someone broken, someone trained to kill. Alexander stepped over one of the unconscious men. His legs shook. He moved closer to her, slowly, like he was approaching something wild. "You just took down 5 armed men," he said, "in less than a minute. How?" McKenna's jaw tightened. "I told you, I didn't have a choice." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now." Alexander stared at her, his chest rising and falling, his mind racing, trying to piece together who she was, where she came from. What kind of life taught someone to fight like that? And then he realized something that made his stomach twist. She'd been hiding. This whole time. From everyone. From him. Because people don't hide unless they're running from something. Think about the people you pass every day, the ones who smile, the ones who keep their heads down, the ones who never ask for help. How many of them are fighting battles you'll never see? How many of them are surviving wars you'll never know about? Maybe it's time we started paying attention. Alexander opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, the tall man on the floor coughed. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. His eyes fluttered open. He looked up at McKenna, then at Alexander, and he smiled, a dark, broken smile. "You're already dead," he whispered. McKenna crouched beside him, her voice cold, steady. "Who sent you?" The man laughed. It turned into a cough. "More blood." He winced. "Doesn't matter," he rasped. "They'll send more. They always do." "Who?" McKenna demanded. The man's eyes flicked to Alexander, stayed there, like he was looking at a corpse. "Ask him," the man said. "Ask him who wants him gone." Alexander's face went pale. McKenna turned to him. "Alexander, who is this about?" He didn't answer, couldn't, because deep down he already knew. There was only one person in his life who hated him enough to do this, only one person who had the money, the connections, the motive, his brother. The man on the floor coughed again, struggled to breathe, but he forced the words out anyway. "He said to make it clean," No witnesses. No mistakes. McKenna's blood ran cold. Who said that? The man's smile widened. Blood stained his teeth. Luca. The name hit Alexander like a bullet. His knees almost gave out. He grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself. No, he whispered. No, he wouldn't. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Luca would. Luca could. And Luca just did. McKenna stood slowly. Her eyes locked on Alexander. She saw the denial, the disbelief, the heartbreak spreading across his face. "Your brother tried to kill you," she said softly. Alexander shook his head. Over and over, like he could undo the truth. "He's my brother," he whispered. "He's my family." "Family doesn't send 5 men with guns," McKenna said. Alexander's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. The man on the floor coughed one last time. His breathing slowed. His eyes glazed over, and then he went still. The suite fell silent again. McKenna stood, looked at Alexander, saw the devastation in his eyes. "We need to leave," she said. "Right now." "Why?" Alexander asked, his voice hollow. McKenna stepped closer, her voice urgent, sharp. "Because if your brother sent 5 men and they failed, he's going to send more, and next time they won't hesitate." Alexander stared at her, still processing, still breaking. "How do you know that?" McKenna's jaw tightened. "Because that's what I would do." The words hung in the air, heavy, terrible. Alexander looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Who are you?" he whispered. McKenna didn't answer, because before she could, the lights in the penthouse went out. Every single one. The suite plunged into darkness, and somewhere in the hallway outside, footsteps approached. Slow, heavy, deliberate. More men. The darkness swallowed everything. McKenna's hand shot out, grabbed Alexander's wrist, pulled him close. "Don't move," she whispered. "Don't make a sound." Alexander's breathing was too loud, too fast, panic rising in his chest. "They're coming," he whispered back. "I know." McKenna's eyes adjusted quickly. Years of training, years of surviving in places where light was a luxury you couldn't afford. She could see shapes now, furniture, bodies on the floor, the outline of the door, and shadows moving in the hallway outside. More than one. Alexander's grip tightened on her arm. His voice shook. How did they cut the power? "Someone inside the hotel," McKenna said quietly. "Someone who knows the building." Alexander's stomach dropped, because that meant this wasn't just about Luca sending men. This was planned, coordinated. Someone had access. Someone had been watching. Someone had been waiting for the right moment. And the right moment was now. McKenna pulled Alexander toward the back of the suite, away from the door, toward the narrow service hallway that only staff knew about. "Stay behind me," she whispered. "McKenna, wait. No time." She moved fast, silent. Alexander stumbled after her, trying to keep up. Behind them, the penthouse door opened, slow, deliberate. Footsteps entered, heavy boots on marble, more than 2, maybe 4. A voice called out, calm, professional. "We know you're still in here." Alexander froze. McKenna didn't. She kept moving, pulled him into the service hallway, pressed him against the wall. "Don't answer," she breathed. "Don't give them your position." The voice spoke again, louder this time. "Mr. Cole, there's no point in hiding. We're not here to hurt you. We just need you to come with us." Alexander's jaw clenched. His fists shook. "They're lying," McKenna whispered. "How do you know?" "Because if they just wanted to take you, they wouldn't have sent armed men first. They would have knocked on your door and asked nicely." Alexander swallowed hard. She was right. The footsteps spread out, searching. One went left, one went right. 2 stayed near the entrance. McKenna's mind raced, counting, calculating. 4 men, maybe more in the hallway. Too many to fight in the dark. They needed to run. But running meant leaving evidence, leaving questions, leaving a trail that would follow them forever. Alexander whispered, "Why did he say Elias?" McKenna glanced at him. "What?" "The man on the floor. Before he died, he said, Elias." "So?" Alexander's voice cracked. "That's my middle name. Almost nobody knows it. Not the press, not investors, not even most of my staff." McKenna's stomach twisted. "Then who does?" Alexander's eyes filled with pain. "Family." The word hung between them like a knife. McKenna understood now. This wasn't random. This wasn't business. This was personal. "Your brother," she said quietly. Alexander nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Luca. He's the only one who still calls me that. When we were kids, he used to say it to annoy me, to remind me I wasn't just Alexander. I was Elias too, the son our father never wanted." McKenna's chest tightened. Betrayal from strangers was one thing. Betrayal from blood was something else. Something that broke you in ways you couldn't fix. "I'm sorry," she said. Alexander shook his head. Tears slipped down his face. "I should have seen it coming. He's hated me for years, ever since our father left me the company instead of him, but I never thought he'd—" His voice broke. McKenna put a hand on his shoulder, firm, steady. "We'll deal with him later. Right now, we survive." Alexander nodded, wiped his eyes, tried to pull himself together. One of the men in the suite spoke again. "Check the bedroom. Check the bathroom." He couldn't have gone far. Footsteps moved closer. McKenna's hand slid to the small of her back. She'd grabbed one of the fallen guns during the fight, hidden it in her waistband. She pulled it out now. Checked the clip. 6 rounds. Not enough if things went wrong. Alexander saw the gun. His eyes widened. "You know how to use that?" McKenna gave him a look that said more than words ever could. Alexander swallowed. "Right. Stupid question." McKenna peeked around the corner, saw a shadow moving toward them. She pulled Alexander deeper into the service hallway, toward the emergency stairwell. But before they reached it, the lights flickered back on. Bright, blinding. McKenna blinked, vision adjusting, and then she saw him, standing at the end of the hallway, blocking their only exit. A man in a black suit, tall, broad, calm, no mask. He wasn't hiding anymore because he didn't need to. He smiled, and McKenna's blood turned to ice because she recognized him. Jonah, the night supervisor, the man who'd been working the front desk, the man who'd sent her up to Alexander's penthouse in the first place. He'd been part of it the whole time. Alexander's voice was a broken whisper. "Jonah?" Jonah's smile widened. "Sorry, boss. Nothing personal." He raised a gun, and footsteps thundered down the hallway behind them. McKenna didn't think. She grabbed Alexander's arm and yanked him sideways, hard. The gunshot exploded behind them. The bullet slammed into the wall where Alexander had been standing half a second earlier. Plaster burst. Dust filled the air. McKenna shoved Alexander through a narrow door she knew was there. Staff access, emergency route, a path guests never saw. They stumbled into a cramped stairwell, concrete walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of old paint and bleach. Alexander gasped for air. His legs shook. "He tried to kill me," he whispered. "Jonah tried to kill me." "I know," McKenna said. "Keep moving." She pulled him down the stairs. 2 steps at a time. Fast, not reckless, controlled. Behind them, the door burst open. Boots pounded on concrete, voices shouting, orders being given. They went down the service stairs. Cut them off at the lobby. Don't let them reach the street. McKenna's mind raced. Lobby was out. Front entrance was out. Security would be compromised. Cameras disabled. Exits blocked. They were trapped, inside the building. But McKenna knew this building better than anyone. She'd worked here for 2 years, cleaned every floor, walked every hallway. Memorized every exit most people didn't even know existed. "This way," she said. She pulled Alexander left at the next landing, through another door, into a maintenance corridor lit only by red emergency lights. Alexander stumbled, nearly fell. She caught him. "I can't," he gasped. "I can't keep—" "Yes, you can," McKenna said firmly. "You don't have a choice." He nodded, swallowed, pushed forward. They ran through the narrow corridor, pipes overhead, electrical boxes on the walls, the hum of machinery vibrating through the floor. Alexander's voice cracked. How did Jonah know? How did he get involved? McKenna didn't answer right away, because she was piecing it together. Fast. Jonah had access to everything. Security codes, camera feeds, staff schedules. He knew when Alexander would be alone, knew when McKenna would be sent up with towels, knew exactly how to stage the perfect ambush, but that kind of information didn't come cheap. Someone paid him. Someone with money, power, connections. "Your brother," McKenna said. "Luca paid him. Probably paid others too." Alexander's face went pale. "How many?" "I don't know. But if Jonah's involved, we can't trust anyone in this building." They reached another door. McKenna pressed her ear against it, listened. No sounds on the other side. She opened it slowly, peeked out. Empty hallway, 28th floor. Guest rooms on both sides. Quiet. Too quiet. She motioned for Alexander to follow. They moved quickly, silently. Alexander whispered, "Where are we going?" "Fire escape, west side. It's hidden behind the utility closet on this floor. Guests don't know about it. Most staff don't either." "How do you know?" McKenna glanced at him. "Because I've had to plan my own escape routes before." Alexander's eyes widened. He wanted to ask more, wanted to know why. But this wasn't the time. They reached the utility closet. McKenna opened it, pushed aside mop buckets and cleaning supplies. There, a metal door, rusted hinges, no handle, just a push bar. She pressed it. The door groaned open. Cold air rushed in. A metal fire escape, narrow, rusted, overlooking an alley 28 floors below. Alexander looked down. His stomach dropped. "You're kidding." "No," McKenna said. "Let's go." "I'm barefoot," Alexander said. "I'm wearing a towel, and you want me to climb down a fire escape?" McKenna turned to him, her voice serious, steady. "You can climb down in a towel, or you can die in a penthouse. Your choice." Alexander stared at her, then nodded. They stepped onto the fire escape. The metal was cold, slick with old rain. Alexander winced as his bare feet touched it. McKenna moved first, fast, confident, like she'd done this before. Alexander followed, slower, careful. Every step felt like it might send him tumbling into the dark. They climbed down. 1 floor, 2, 3. Behind them. Voices echoed from inside the building, doors slamming, radios crackling. "They're not in the stairwell." "Check the guest floors." "Someone find them." McKenna kept moving, focused, breathing steady, but her mind was spinning. Because Jonah wasn't just some random traitor. He'd worked at the Golden Crest for 5 years. Longer than McKenna, he had seniority, trust, access. If Luca could buy Jonah, who else did he buy? How many people in this building were working for him? How deep did this betrayal go? Alexander's voice broke through her thoughts. "McKenna, why are you helping me?" She didn't stop climbing, didn't look back. "Because it's the right thing to do." That's not a real answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. They reached the 15th floor, halfway down. McKenna paused, checked the alley below. Dark, empty. No cars, no people. Good. But then she heard it. A sound that made her blood freeze. The fire escape door above them opened. Someone stepped out. Flashlight beam cutting through the dark. A voice called down. "Found them." Gunshots rang out. Bullets ricocheted off the metal railing. Sparks flew. Makina grabbed Alexander, pulled him down, pressed him against the wall. "Go!" she shouted. "Faster!" They scrambled down the fire escape, bullets chasing them, metal pinging, alarms blaring. Alexander's foot slipped. He grabbed the railing, held on. Makina pulled him up, didn't let go. They dropped onto a platform. 12 floors left, too far to jump, too slow to climb, and more footsteps thundered above them. Makina looked down, looked up, looked at Alexander. Her mind made a decision. "Do you trust me?" she asked. Alexander's eyes were wide, terrified, but he nodded. "Yes." Makina grabbed his hand. "Then hold on." She kicked open the window beside them, shattered glass, climbed inside. They tumbled into someone's hotel room, dark, empty, bed still made. Makina pulled Alexander to his feet, ran to the door, opened it. Hallway, clear. For now. She pulled him out, toward the elevator. Alexander gasped. "You just broke into someone's room. They'll forgive me." They reached the elevator. Makina pressed the button, waited. The doors opened, and standing inside was someone Makina recognized, someone she'd worked with for 2 years, someone she'd trusted, someone who'd smiled at her every morning and asked how she was doing. Maria, the housekeeping manager. She was holding a phone, eyes cold, expression blank. She looked at Makina, then at Alexander, and said into the phone, "I have them." Makina's heart shattered, because the betrayal wasn't just in Alexander's family, it was in Makina's workplace too. Makina's hand shot out, slapped the phone from Maria's grip. It clattered to the elevator floor. Screen cracked. Maria gasped, stepped back, eyes wide. "Makina, wait." "Don't," Makina said, her voice cold, sharp. "Don't say another word." Alexander stood frozen beside her, staring at Maria like she was a stranger, like the woman who'd smiled at them every morning had just become a ghost. "You too?" he whispered. "You're with them?" Maria's face twisted. Guilt, fear, shame, all mixed together. "I didn't have a choice," she said. Her voice broke. "They threatened my daughter. Said if I didn't help, they'd—" "Stop," Makina interrupted. "I don't care." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. They have pictures of her. Her school. Her route home. They said if I didn't cooperate." "Then you should have gone to the police," Makina said, "not sold us out." "I couldn't," Maria cried. "They said they'd know. They said they have people everywhere. I couldn't risk it." Alexander's jaw clenched. "So you risked us instead." Maria looked at him, then at Makina, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Makina didn't respond, because sorry didn't fix anything. Sorry didn't undo betrayal. Sorry didn't bring back trust. She grabbed Alexander's arm, pulled him out of the elevator, left Maria standing there, sobbing. They ran down the hallway, past guest rooms, past ice machines, past everything familiar that now felt dangerous. Alexander's voice shook. "How many of them are there?" "Too many," Makina said. "Who can we trust?" "No one." The words hung heavy, true, terrifying. Because when survival is at stake, trust becomes a luxury you can't afford. When money or fear is involved, people you thought you knew become strangers, and the only person you can rely on is yourself. They turned a corner, and there he was, Jonah, standing in the middle of the hallway, alone, no gun, hands raised slightly, like he was surrendering. Makina stopped, pulled Alexander behind her. Jonah's face was pale, tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "Makina," he said quietly, "I need to talk to you." "No," she said. "You need to get out of my way. Please, just listen." Makina's hand slid to the gun tucked in her waistband. "You have 5 seconds." Jonah swallowed, nodded. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear I didn't know they were going to kill him." Alexander's voice was raw. "Then what did you think was going to happen?" Jonah looked at him. eyes full of regret. They told me it was just a scare, just pressure. They said they needed him alone for a conversation. That's it. I didn't know about the guns. I didn't know about— Liar, McKenna said. I'm not lying, Jonah's voice cracked. I needed the money. My wife is sick. The treatments aren't covered. I was desperate. They offered me $50,000 just to disable the cameras and send you upstairs. That's all. I didn't know it would. A door behind him burst open. One of the masked men from earlier stepped out. The fourth one. The one McKenna had kicked in the ribs. He was holding a gun, pointed at Jonah's back. Jonah froze. His eyes went wide. Move, the man said. Now. Jonah raised his hands higher. Wait, I did what you asked. The man's voice was ice. You failed. No, I got them. Here. I disabled the cameras. And now they're still alive, the man said, which means you're useless. Jonah's face went white. McKenna saw it happening, saw the decision being made, saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger. She didn't think, just reacted. Jonah. Get down. Jonah dropped. The gunshot exploded. The bullet missed him by inches, slammed into the wall. McKenna pulled her gun, aimed, fired. Her shot hit the man's shoulder. He spun, stumbled, dropped his weapon. But before McKenna could move, 3 more doors opened. 3 more men stepped out, all armed, all aiming at her and Alexander. McKenna's heart sank. They were surrounded. Jonah scrambled backward on the floor, crawled toward them, his voice desperate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. One of the men kicked him, hard, in the ribs. Jonah gasped, curled up, stopped talking. The tallest man stepped forward, calm, controlled, like this was just another job. He pulled out a radio, pressed the button, spoke clearly. Target found, West Wing, 12th floor. Static crackled. Then a voice responded, cold, emotionless. Copy. Bring him alive. Alive, not dead. Which meant whatever Luca wanted, it wasn't just murder. It was something worse. The man lowered the radio, looked at Alexander, smiled. Your brother wants to see you. Alexander's blood turned to ice. McKenna's grip tightened on the gun, her mind racing, calculating. 4 men, 1 hallway, no cover. She couldn't take them all, not without getting Alexander killed. The man stepped closer, gun raised. Drop your weapon, he said, or we shoot him first. McKenna didn't move, didn't blink. You won't, she said. You need him alive. The man's smile widened. We need him breathing. Doesn't mean he has to be standing. He aimed at Alexander's leg. McKenna's heart hammered. She had 1 second to decide. Fight and risk Alexander getting shot, or surrender and hope for another chance. Her hand trembled. Alexander whispered, McKenna, don't. She looked at him, saw the fear in his eyes, the trust, the desperate hope that she'd find a way out of this. And she realized something that broke her. She couldn't save him. Not this time. Not like this. The man's finger moved toward the trigger, and McKenna made her choice. She dropped the gun. The gun hit the floor with a heavy thud. McKenna raised her hands, slowly, eyes locked on the man in front of her. Alexander's breath came fast, shallow, terrified. The tall man smiled, satisfied. Smart choice. He motioned to the others. 2 men moved forward, grabbed McKenna's arms, twisted them behind her back. Zip ties cut into her wrists. Another man grabbed Alexander, shoved him against the wall, started patting him down. Jonah lay on the floor a few feet away, still curled up, still gasping from the kick. Blood trickled from his mouth. He looked up at McKenna, eyes pleading. I'm sorry, he whispered again. I didn't mean for this. One of the men turned, looked down, at Jonah like he was garbage. Shut up. Jonah flinched, but he kept talking, like he needed to get the words out before it was too late. I swear I didn't know they'd hurt anyone. They told me it was just business, just a meeting. I thought. The man kicked him again, harder this time. Jonah screamed, clutched his ribs. Blood spilled from his mouth onto the carpet. I said, "Shut up," the man repeated. McKenna's jaw clenched, anger boiling under her skin. "Leave him alone," she said. "He's not a threat." The man turned to her, amused. "You giving orders now?" "I'm telling you he's not worth your time." The man laughed, cold, empty. "You're right, he's not." He raised his gun, pointed it at Jonah's head. Jonah's eyes went wide, hands raised, voice breaking. "Wait, please. I have a family. Should have thought about that before you got involved," the man said. His finger moved to the trigger. McKenna lunged forward, hard, fast. The men holding her weren't ready. She twisted, broke free, slammed her shoulder into the gunman's chest. The gun fired, but the shot went wide, hit the ceiling. Plaster exploded. McKenna didn't stop. She drove her knee into the man's stomach. He doubled over. She headbutted him. He dropped. The other two rushed her. She kicked one in the chest, sent him flying backward into the wall. The other grabbed her from behind. She threw her head back, cracked his nose. He screamed, "Let go." Alexander shouted her name. She turned, saw him struggling with the man holding him. She ran toward them, but one of the men tackled her, slammed her into the floor. Her head hit hard. Vision blurred. She tasted blood. The man pinned her down, his weight crushing her chest. "Stay down," he yelled. McKenna bucked, twisted, but he was too heavy, too strong. Alexander broke free, stumbled toward her, but another man grabbed him, threw him back against the wall. "Don't move," the man growled. Alexander froze, eyes locked on McKenna, helpless. The tall man stood, dusted himself off. Blood dripped from his nose. He wiped it away, looked at McKenna with pure hatred. "You just made this harder than it needed to be." He raised his gun, aimed at her head. "No!" Alexander screamed. "Don't!" The man paused, looked at Alexander, then back at McKenna. "She's in the way," he said. "We only need you." "Then take me," Alexander said, his voice shaking. "Let her go. I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever Luca wants. Just don't hurt her." The man considered it, then shook his head. "Can't do that. She knows too much now." He aimed again. McKenna closed her eyes, braced herself, but the shot didn't come. Instead, a voice crackled through the man's radio, cold, commanding, familiar. "Don't kill her. Bring them both." The man frowned, pressed the button. "Both? She's not part of—" "I said bring them both," the voice interrupted. "Alive. Now." The man hesitated, then lowered his gun. "Copy." He looked at McKenna, then at Alexander. "You just got lucky," he said. "Both of you." He motioned to the others. "Bag them. Move out." One of the men pulled out a black hood, shoved it over McKenna's head. Everything went dark. She felt hands grabbing her, lifting her, dragging her. She heard Alexander struggling, heard him shouting her name, heard them hood him too. Jonah's voice was faint, broken, desperate. "Please, don't leave me here. Please." A gunshot silenced him. McKenna's heart stopped. Jonah didn't make another sound. They dragged her down the hallway, shoved her into an elevator. The doors closed. The car descended. Fast. She couldn't see, couldn't move, could barely breathe under the hood. But she could think, and what she thought terrified her. They wanted Alexander alive, not dead, which meant Luca wasn't just trying to kill his brother. He was trying to use him. For what? Passwords? Access codes? Evidence? Whatever it wasn't something you could get from a corpse. The elevator stopped. Doors opened. Cold air rushed in. They were outside now. She felt pavement under her feet, heard car engines, heard voices. Someone shoved her into a vehicle, rough, hard. She hit the seat, felt Alexander land beside her. "McKenna?" he whispered, his voice muffled under the hood. "I'm here." She whispered back, "What's happening?" "I don't know." The car doors slammed shut. The engine roared. They started moving, fast. McKenna's mind raced, calculating, planning, looking for a way out. But deep down, she knew the truth. They weren't just prisoners anymore. They were bait. And whatever Luca had planned for Alexander, it was something far worse than a bullet. Because alive meant torture. Alive meant interrogation. Alive meant watching everything you loved destroyed right in front of you. And McKenna realized with sick certainty that the only reason they wanted her alive too was to use her against Alexander, to break him, to make him talk, to give them whatever they needed, which meant they needed Alexander for something worse than murder. The car drove for 20 minutes. McKenna counted every turn, every stop, every acceleration. Building a mental map? Preparing. Beside her, Alexander's breathing was uneven, fast, panicked. She whispered through the hood, "Stay calm." "How?" His voice cracked. "They're taking us to Luca. He's going to kill us." "No," McKenna said. "If he wanted you dead, you'd already be dead." "Then what does he want?" McKenna paused, because that was the question that mattered most. "Information," she said quietly. "He wants something only you have." Alexander went silent. She heard him swallow, heard the fear shift into something else. Realization. "He knows," Alexander whispered. "Knows what?" Alexander's voice dropped, barely audible. "I found evidence, financial records, transactions Luca buried, money laundering, offshore accounts, deals with people who shouldn't exist on any legal document." McKenna's stomach tightened. How much evidence? Enough to destroy him. Enough to send him to prison for life. Maybe worse. McKenna exhaled slowly. Processing. So this wasn't just about family rivalry. This wasn't just about jealousy or inheritance. This was about survival. Luca needed that evidence gone. And the only way to make sure it stayed gone was to eliminate the one person who knew where it was. But if Alexander was dead, the evidence could still surface. Someone else might find it. The police. The FBI. A journalist. So Luca needed Alexander alive. Long enough to find out where the evidence was hidden, long enough to destroy it. And after that, Alexander would disappear, quietly, permanently. "Where is it?" McKenna asked. "The evidence." "Safe," Alexander said. "Hidden, encrypted. Only I can access it. Does Luca know that?" "He suspects. That's why he hasn't killed me yet." The car slowed, turned, stopped. McKenna's muscles tensed. Ready. The doors opened. Hands grabbed her, pulled her out, shoved her forward. She stumbled, felt gravel under her feet. Then concrete, then carpet. They were inside somewhere, a building. She heard voices, footsteps, doors closing. Someone ripped the hood off her head. Bright light. She blinked, vision adjusting. They were in a warehouse, old, abandoned, windows boarded up, dust thick in the air. Alexander stood beside her, hood off, face pale, eyes wide. In front of them stood a man in an expensive suit. Tall, dark hair, sharp features. He looked exactly like Alexander, older, colder, crueler. "Luca," he smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Hello, Elias." Alexander's jaw clenched. "Don't call me that." Luca's smile widened. "Why not? It's your name. The name Father gave you. The name you've always hated." "You tried to kill me," Luca shrugged. "I tried to bring you here. The killing part was optional, depending on how cooperative you are." Alexander's fists shook. "I won't give you what you want." "Oh, I think you will," Luca said. He glanced at McKenna. "Especially since you brought a guest." McKenna's blood ran cold. Luca stepped closer, studied her, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Who's this? Your bodyguard? Your lover? Your maid?" Alexander didn't answer. Luca chuckled. "Doesn't matter. What matters is, You care about her. I can see it in your eyes. He turned to one of his men. Tie her up. Make sure she's comfortable. We'll need her later. Two men grabbed Makina, started dragging her toward a chair in the corner. Wait, Alexander shouted. Leave her alone. She has nothing to do with this. Luca turned back to him, eyebrows raised. Then give me what I want. Tell me where the evidence is, and I'll let her walk out of here. Alexander hesitated, looked at Makina, then at Luca. You're lying. Maybe, Luca said, but what choice do you have? Silence, heavy, suffocating. Makina spoke, her voice steady, strong. Don't tell him anything. Alexander looked at her, shocked. Makina, he's going to kill us either way, she said. The moment you tell him where that evidence is, we're dead. Both of us. Luca's smile faded. He looked at Makina with something like respect. Smart, he said. Smarter than I expected from a maid. I'm not just a maid, Makina said. I can see that. He motioned to his men. Tie her up, tightly. They shoved her into the chair, wrapped rope around her wrists, her ankles, her chest. She didn't fight, not yet. Luca turned back to Alexander. Last chance, Elias. Tell me where the evidence is, or I start hurting her. Alexander's face twisted. Pain, fear, desperation. You're a monster. I'm a businessman, Luca corrected, and you're a problem I need to solve. He pulled out a knife, long, sharp, clean, walked toward Makina. Alexander screamed. Stop! I'll tell you everything. Luca paused, looked back at him. I'm listening. Alexander's voice shook. The evidence is hidden, encrypted, on a server only I can access. If you kill me, you'll never find it. Where's the server? Alexander swallowed. I'll take you to it, but only if you let her go. Luca laughed. You really think you're in a position to negotiate? I'm the only one who can access it, Alexander said. Kill me, and it goes public automatically. I set up a dead man's switch. If I don't check in every 72 hours, the files get sent to every major news outlet in the country. Luca's smile vanished. He stared at Alexander, calculating, deciding. You're bluffing. Try me. Silence. Luca's jaw tightened. He looked at Makina, then back at Alexander. Fine, he said. We'll do this your way, for now. He motioned to his men. Bring them both. We're going to the server. They untied Makina, pulled her to her feet, shoved her toward the door. Alexander looked at her, mouthed two words. Trust me. Makina nodded. But inside, her mind was racing. Because she knew the truth, Alexander wasn't saying. There was no dead man's switch. He was buying time, and time was the only weapon they had left. The cost of truth is always higher than we think. It costs safety. It costs peace. Sometimes it costs everything. But silence? Silence costs your soul. And some people would rather lose everything than lose themselves. They were shoved into another car, driven through the city, toward whatever location Alexander had just lied about. Makina leaned close to him, whispered, There's no server, is there? Alexander's eyes met hers, sad, scared, honest. No. Then where are we going? Alexander looked out the window, at the city lights, at the buildings rising into the sky. Higher, he said. Makina frowned. What? Alexander turned to her, his voice steady now, determined. If we're going to survive this, we need to go where Luca can't follow. Where's that? Alexander's eyes lifted, up, toward the tallest building in the skyline. The roof, he said, and Makina understood. They weren't running anymore. They were climbing. Then, we go higher. The car stopped at the base of the tallest building in the city. Makina looked up through the window. 50 floors. Glass and steel cutting into the night sky. Lights flickering like distant stars. Alexander's office building. The headquarters of his company. The empire his father built. The throne Luca always wanted, but never earned. Luca stepped out of the car first, straightened his suit, looked up at the building like it was already his. "Let's go," he said. His men dragged Makina and Alexander out, shoved them toward the entrance. The lobby was empty. Dark. Security guards gone. Cameras disabled. Luca had planned this down to the second. They entered the elevator. Luca pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed. The car climbed. Makina's heart pounded. Her mind raced. She glanced at Alexander. He was staring at the floor numbers lighting up. One after another, climbing higher. She leaned close, whispered, "What's your plan?" Alexander didn't look at her, just whispered back, "Survive long enough to figure one out." Not exactly reassuring. The elevator stopped. 50th floor. The doors opened. They stepped into Alexander's private office. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the entire city. Desk, chairs, bookshelves, everything polished, perfect, untouched. Luca walked to the desk, ran his hand across it, smiled. "This should have been mine," he said quietly. "Father promised me this company, promised me everything, and then he gave it all to you." Alexander's voice was cold. "Because I earned it. You just wanted it." Luca's smile vanished. He turned, fury flashing in his eyes. "You think you're better than me? I think I'm not a murderer." Luca laughed, harsh, bitter. "Not yet, but give it time. Power changes everyone, Elias, even you." He motioned to his men. "Take them to the roof." Makina's stomach dropped. The roof. Alexander wasn't lying. He really was taking them higher. But why? What was up there? What was his plan? They were shoved toward a stairwell, narrow, metal, emergency access only. They climbed. 1 flight, 2, 3. Alexander's breathing grew heavier. Makina stayed close behind him, ready to move, ready to act. Finally, they reached the top. A heavy metal door, a push bar, a sign that read, "Roof access, authorized personnel only." One of the men shoved the door open. Cold wind rushed in, sharp, biting. The rooftop stretched out before them. Concrete, vents, pipes, no railings, just open sky and a 50-story drop. Makina stepped onto the roof. The city spread out below like an ocean of lights. Beautiful, terrifying, endless. Alexander stood beside her, his towel long gone. Someone had given him pants and a shirt, but he still looked broken. Exhausted. Lost. Luca stepped onto the roof behind them. His men followed. 3 of them, all armed, all watching. Luca looked around, smiled. Perfect. He turned to Alexander. "Now, tell me where the server is, or I throw her off this roof." Alexander's face went pale. "You said you'd let her go." "I lied." Luca motioned to his men. 2 of them grabbed Makina, dragged her toward the edge. She didn't fight, not yet. She was waiting, watching, calculating. Alexander shouted, "Stop, please, I'll tell you." "Then talk," Luca said. Alexander swallowed, his voice shaking. "There's no server." Silence. Luca stared at him. Disbelief, rage, realization. "What?" "There's no server," Alexander repeated. "No dead man's switch, no backup files." "I lied." Luca's jaw clenched. His fists shook. "You lied?" "To buy time," Alexander said. "To get us here." Luca stepped closer, voice low, dangerous. "Why here? What's here?" Alexander looked at Makina, then back at Luca. "Witnesses." He pointed up. Makina followed his gaze, saw it. A helicopter, circling above. Searchlight cutting through the dark. News helicopter. Someone had tipped them off. Someone knew what was happening, and now they were filming. Luca's face twisted. He looked up, saw the helicopter, cursed. "Shoot it down," he screamed at his men. But before they could react, Alexander ran, straight toward Luca, slammed into him. They crashed to the ground. The men holding Makina turned, distracted, and that was the opening she needed. She twisted, broke free, drove her elbow into one man's throat. He choked, fell. The second man swung at her. She ducked, kicked his knee. heard it crack. He screamed, dropped. The third man raised his gun, aimed at Alexander. McKenna didn't think, just moved. She sprinted, faster than she'd ever run, closed the distance, slammed into him just as he fired. The bullet went wide, missed Alexander by inches. McKenna and the man hit the ground, rolling, fighting. His gun skittered across the roof. He punched her. She blocked, countered, struck his jaw, his nose, his ribs. He grabbed her throat, squeezed. She couldn't breathe, vision blurring, darkening. She reached out, fingers searching, found a loose piece of metal, rebar, rusted, sharp. She grabbed it, swung. It connected with his head. He let go, collapsed. McKenna gasped for air, coughed, stood. Alexander and Luca were still fighting, rolling near the edge, too close. One wrong move and they'd both fall. "Alexander!" McKenna shouted. He looked up. Luca took the chance, punched him, hard. Alexander's head snapped back. Luca stood, pulled a gun from his jacket, pointed it at Alexander's chest. "This ends now," Luca said. McKenna's heart stopped. No time to think, no time to plan, only time to act. And McKenna charged. McKenna slammed into Luca just as he pulled the trigger. The gun fired. The bullet went high, disappeared into the night sky. Luca stumbled backward, caught off balance. McKenna didn't let up. She drove her shoulder into his chest, sent him crashing into the ventilation unit behind him. The gun flew from his hand, skittered across the concrete, out of reach. Alexander scrambled to his feet. Blood dripped from his nose. His lip was split, but he was alive. Luca groaned, pushed himself up, glared at McKenna with pure hatred. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," he snarled. "Not the first time I've heard that," McKenna said. The three men she'd taken down earlier were getting back up. Slow, injured, but still moving, still dangerous. One of them picked up a metal pipe. Another grabbed a piece of rebar. The third pulled a knife. They spread out, surrounding her, forming a triangle. Alexander shouted, "McKenna, behind you!" She spun. The man with the pipe swung. She ducked. The pipe whooshed over her head. She grabbed his wrist, twisted, drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over. She ripped the pipe from his hands and swung it into his ribs. He dropped. The second man lunged with the rebar. She blocked with the pipe. Metal clanged against metal. Sparks flew. He swung again. She parried, countered, struck his knee. He screamed, fell. The third man came at her with the knife. Fast, trained. He knew what he was doing. He slashed. She dodged. He stabbed. She twisted. The blade missed her by inches. She swung the pipe. He blocked, kicked her in the stomach. She stumbled back, gasping. He advanced, knife raised, eyes cold. "You fight well for a maid," he said. "I'm not just a maid," McKenna said. "I can see that." He lunged. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, twisted. The knife fell. She drove her elbow into his face. Once, twice, 3 times. He collapsed. McKenna stood in the center of the roof, breathing hard, blood on her knuckles, bruises forming on her arms. 3 men down. Again. Alexander stared at her, shocked, amazed, terrified. "How do you keep doing that?" he whispered. "Practice," she said. Luca stood slowly, his suit torn, his face bleeding, but his eyes still burned with rage. "You think this is over?" he said. "You think taking down a few men changes anything?" "It buys time," McKenna said. "For what? That helicopter?" Luca laughed. "You think the news will save you? I own half the media in this city. That footage will never see the light of day." "Then why are you still here?" Alexander asked. "Why haven't you run?" Luca's smile faded. He looked at his brother, at McKenna, at the unconscious men scattered across the roof. "Because I'm not done yet." One of the men on the ground groaned, the one with the knife. He rolled onto his back, coughed. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Luca," He rasped, "We failed." "Shut up," Luca snapped. "They'll be angry." I said, "Shut up." But the man kept talking, his voice weak, fading. "You told us it would be easy. You said no one would fight back. But you didn't tell us about her." He looked at McKenna, eyes filled with something like respect. "Who trained you?" he asked. McKenna didn't answer. The man coughed again. More blood. "Doesn't matter. They'll send more. Better ones. They always do." McKenna's stomach twisted. She looked at Luca. "Who's they?" Luca's jaw clenched. He didn't answer. The man on the ground smiled, weak, broken. "You think this is just about Luca? You think he's the one in charge?" Alexander stepped forward. "What are you talking about?" The man's eyes fluttered, his voice barely a whisper now. "Luca's just a pawn, just like the rest of us. The people he works for, they're bigger, richer, more dangerous." McKenna felt cold crawl up her spine. "Who?" she demanded. "Who does he work for?" The man's breathing slowed, his eyes glazed over. "People you'll never see coming." And then he went still. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. McKenna turned to Luca, her voice sharp, accusing. "Who are you working for?" Luca said nothing, but his face had gone pale. His confidence cracked. Alexander stared at his brother, realization dawning. "You're not doing this alone, are you?" Alexander said quietly. "You don't have the resources, the connections, the power." Luca's fists clenched. "Someone hired you," Alexander continued. "Someone who wants me dead for reasons that have nothing to do with our family." Luca's silence was answer enough. McKenna's mind raced, pieces clicking into place. The coordinated attack, the hotel staff being compromised, the backup teams, the professionals. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't jealousy. This was business. Cold, calculated, professional. And Luca wasn't the mastermind. He was just the hired muscle, the inside man, the family member willing to betray his own blood for a paycheck. Think about the people who risk everything to protect someone else, the ones who don't run when they should, the ones who stand between danger and the defenseless. We don't celebrate them enough. We don't honor them enough. Maybe we should. Alexander's voice shook. "Who paid you to kill me?" Luca's eyes flickered, fear, guilt, anger, all mixed together. "You don't want to know," he said quietly. "Tell me," Alexander demanded. "You can't fight them. No one can." "Then I'll die trying." Luca laughed, bitter, hopeless. "You already are." Before anyone could respond, the helicopter above them descended. Lower, closer. Searchlight blinding. A voice boomed through a speaker. "This is the police. Everyone on the roof, put your hands up." Luca's face twisted. He looked at the helicopter, at McKenna, at Alexander. "This isn't over," he said. And then he ran. Straight toward the edge of the roof. McKenna shouted, "Stop!" But Luca didn't stop. He leaped, grabbed a cable hanging from the side of the building, rappelled down, disappeared into the shadows below. Alexander rushed to the edge, looked down, saw nothing but darkness. "He's gone," he whispered. McKenna stood beside him, her mind spinning, because now she understood. This wasn't just a family betrayal, it was a conspiracy. The police helicopter circled above, searchlight sweeping across the roof, voices shouting through megaphones. But McKenna wasn't listening. She was staring at the edge where Luca had disappeared, her mind racing, processing, understanding. Alexander grabbed her arm. "We need to go, now, before they arrest us." "We can't," McKenna said. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because whoever paid Luca is still out there. And if we leave without answers, they'll just send someone else." Alexander's face went pale. "What do we do?" McKenna looked around the roof, searching, thinking. Her eyes landed on a small metal shed near the corner. Emergency equipment, maintenance access, and something else. She ran toward it. Alexander followed. She pulled open the shed door. Inside were tools, cables, fire extinguishers, and a security panel. Old, dusty, covered in warning stickers, but still active. Alexander looked at it, frowned. What is that? Building override, McKenna said. Controls every lock, every camera, every alarm in the entire building. How do you know that? Because I used to help the maintenance crew when they needed extra hands. I've seen them use it. She examined the panel. Buttons, switches, a small digital screen, password protected. Alexander stepped closer. Can you access it? Maybe, if I can remember the code. She closed her eyes, thought back. 2 years ago, watching the maintenance supervisor punch in numbers, she'd been cleaning nearby, pretending not to pay attention, but her mind had recorded everything. Old habits, survival instincts, always watching, always learning. She opened her eyes, punched in a sequence, 6 digits. The screen blinked. Red. Access denied. She cursed, tried again. Different numbers. Access denied. Alexander looked over his shoulder. The helicopter was lowering. Police would be on the roof any second. McKenna, we're out of time. I know. She tried one more sequence, slower this time, deliberate. The screen blinked. Green. Access granted. Alexander exhaled. You did it. McKenna's fingers moved across the panel, pulling up building schematics, security logs, access records. What are you looking for? Alexander asked. Proof, McKenna said. If someone inside helped Luca, there'll be a trail. Disabled cameras, overridden locks, something. She scrolled through the logs, hundreds of entries, thousands, too many to process quickly. But then she saw it, a single entry, time-stamped earlier that night, right before the attack. Override. Command. Penthouse floor, cameras disabled. Authorized by admin access. Alexander leaned in, read the screen. His face went white. Admin access. That's top-level clearance. Only 3 people in the company have that. You? McKenna asked. Me, my CFO, and the head of security. McKenna's stomach twisted. Who's your head of security? Alexander's voice cracked. Marcus Webb. He's been with the company for 15 years. Longer than anyone. My father trusted him. I trusted him. McKenna scrolled further. Found another entry. Override command. Fire escape doors. Unlocked. Authorized by admin access. He unlocked the fire escapes, McKenna said. Made it easy for Luca's men to move through the building undetected. Alexander shook his head. Disbelief. Betrayal. Pain. Marcus. Why would he? Same reason as everyone else, McKenna said quietly. Money. She kept scrolling. Found more entries. More overrides. A pattern. A plan. Every security measure disabled at precise times. Coordinated. Professional. And then she found something else. A file. Hidden. Encrypted. But accessible through the admin panel. She opened it. A list of names appeared. Companies. Government officials. Investors. All linked to one project. Project Titan. Alexander's eyes widened. He grabbed the screen. Zoomed in. I know this, he whispered. I've been investigating this. What is it? Alexander's voice shook. A government defense contract, worth billions. My company bid on it months ago. But so did others, bigger companies, ones with connections I don't have. McKenna's pulse quickened. What kind of connections? The kind that don't ask questions, the kind that pay for silence, the kind that eliminate competition. He scrolled through the file. Names, dates, transactions, proof of bribes, blackmail, threats. They've been rigging the bidding process, Alexander said, paying off officials, threatening companies that get too close. I found evidence, started digging, started asking questions. And they decided you were a problem, McKenna finished. Alexander nodded. If I testify, the entire project collapses. Dozens of powerful people go to prison. Billions of dollars disappear. So they hired Luca to eliminate you? and make it look like a family dispute. Silence. Heavy. Terrible. McKenna looked at the file, at the names, at the scale of the conspiracy. This wasn't just about one billionaire. This was about an entire system, corruption at the highest levels. People who operated above the law because they owned the people who wrote the laws. And Alexander had stumbled into the middle of it. The helicopter descended. Closer now. Boots hit the roof. Voices shouting, "Police! Hands up!" McKenna closed the file, looked at Alexander. "We need to copy this. Send it somewhere safe." "Where?" "Everywhere. Every news outlet. Every government agency. Every person who can't be bought." Alexander pulled out his phone, started recording the screen, copying files, sending emails. Footsteps pounded across the roof, coming closer. McKenna's hand slid to the gun she'd hidden in her waistband. Still there, still loaded. She didn't want to use it, not against police. But if they tried to stop Alexander from sending that file, a voice cut through the chaos. "Step away from the panel, now." McKenna turned, and her blood froze. Standing 10 feet away was a man in a suit. Tall, 50s, gray hair, cold eyes. Marcus Webb, head of security. The man who'd betrayed them. He wasn't alone. 3 armed guards stood behind him, all aiming at McKenna and Alexander. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I should have known you'd find the panel," he said. "You always were too smart for your own good, Mr. Cole." Alexander's hands shook. "Marcus." "Why?" "Because they offered me $10 million to look the other way, and you were offering me a salary. I trusted you. That was your mistake." Marcus stepped closer, gun raised. "Delete the file, now, or I'll shoot her first, then you." Alexander's finger hovered over his phone. Delete button right there. One press and everything would disappear. But if he deleted it, the evidence was gone. The conspiracy stayed hidden, and everyone who died for it died for nothing. McKenna whispered, "Don't." Alexander looked at her, then at Marcus, then at the phone, and made his choice. He pressed send. The file uploaded, sent to a dozen email addresses, news outlets, government agencies, journalists. Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You just killed yourself," he snarled. He aimed the gun and fired. McKenna moved faster than the bullet. She shoved Alexander sideways, hard. They both hit the ground as the shot exploded above them. The bullet slammed into the security panel. Sparks flew. The screen shattered. Glass and metal fragments scattered across the roof. Marcus cursed, aimed again. But McKenna was already moving. She rolled, grabbed the gun from her waistband, fired back. Her shot hit the shed wall beside Marcus. He ducked. His guards scattered. "Get down!" one of them shouted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the air, ricocheted off metal, shattered glass. The roof became a war zone. Alexander crawled behind a ventilation unit. McKenna followed, pressed her back against the cold metal, breathing hard. "Did the file send?" she asked. Alexander checked his phone. Screen cracked, but still working. "Yes," he gasped. "All of them. It's out there." McKenna nodded. "Good. Even if they didn't survive this, the truth would." Marcus's voice boomed across the roof. "You can't hide. There's nowhere to go." He was right. The roof was wide open. No cover. No exits except the door they'd come through. And Marcus's men were blocking it. McKenna looked around, desperate, searching for options. Her eyes landed on the damaged security panel. Still smoking, still sparking, but maybe still functional. If she could reach it. If she could trigger one more override. Lock the roof access door. Trap Marcus and his men up here until the police arrived. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had. "Cover me," she said. Alexander's eyes widened. "What?" "I need to get to the panel." "It's destroyed." "Not completely. I can still use it." "McKenna, you'll get shot." She looked at him, her voice steady, calm. "I've been shot before. I'm still here." Alexander stared at her, saw the determination in her eyes, the refusal to give up, the willingness to sacrifice everything for a chance at survival. He nodded. "Okay, go." McKenna took a breath, counted to 3, then sprinted. Bullets chased her, tearing up concrete, sparking off metal. She zigzagged, ducked, dove. She reached the shed, slammed against it, hands already moving toward the damaged panel, wires exposed, circuits fried, but the main board was intact. She could work with that. She pulled wires, connected circuits, bypassed the broken screen, used muscle memory and instinct to navigate the system blind. Her fingers flew, fast, precise. Behind her, gunfire continued. Alexander was shouting, drawing their attention, keeping them focused on him instead of her. Brave, stupid, beautiful. McKenna's heart ached. She couldn't let him die. Not after everything. Her fingers found the right connection. She twisted 2 wires together, sparked the circuit. The panel beeped, faint, weak, but alive. She pressed the emergency lockdown command, blind, hoping she'd connected it right. A mechanical sound echoed across the roof, heavy, final. The roof access door slammed shut. Locks engaged, sealed. Marcus spun toward the sound, his face twisted with rage. No! He ran toward the door, pulled, kicked, slammed his shoulder into it. It didn't budge. They were trapped, all of them, on the roof, with nowhere to go, and a police helicopter circling above. Marcus turned, aimed his gun at McKenna. "You just signed your death warrant," he snarled. "Better than signing yours," McKenna said. He fired. She dove. The bullet grazed her shoulder. Pain exploded. Blood soaked through her shirt. But she didn't stop. She rolled, came up firing. Her shot hit one of Marcus's guards. He dropped. The other 2 guards rushed her. She fought, blocked, struck. But there were too many, too close. One grabbed her arm, twisted. She gasped, pain shooting through her injured shoulder. The other guard kicked her legs. She fell, hit the concrete hard. Vision blurred. They pinned her down. One pressed his knee into her back. The other held her arms. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't fight. Marcus walked over, slowly, gun raised, standing above her like a judge delivering a sentence. "You should have stayed a maid," he said. "Invisible, safe, alive." McKenna's voice was a rasp. "I was never safe." "No," Marcus agreed. "You weren't." He aimed at her head. Alexander screamed, "No, stop!" He ran toward them, desperate, unarmed, helpless. One of the guards turned, aimed at Alexander. McKenna's heart shattered. She couldn't let this happen, couldn't let Alexander die because of her. She bucked, twisted, used every ounce of strength left in her body. The guard on her back lost balance. She rolled, broke free, grabbed his gun, aimed, fired. The shot hit the guard aiming at Alexander. He fell. Marcus spun, fired at McKenna, missed. She fired back, hit his shoulder. He screamed, dropped his gun. The last guard tackled her. They hit the ground, rolling, fighting, his hands around her throat, squeezing. She couldn't breathe, vision darkening, lungs burning. Her hand searched, desperate. Found the piece of rebar from earlier, still lying on the roof. She grabbed it, swung, connected with his head. He let go, collapsed. McKenna gasped for air, coughed, rolled onto her side. Marcus was on the ground, clutching his bleeding shoulder, face twisted with pain and rage. Alexander ran to McKenna, dropped beside her. "Are you okay?" She nodded, barely. The helicopter descended, lower now, spotlight blinding, voice booming through the speaker. "This is the police. Drop your weapons. Hands up." McKenna let the gun fall from her hand, raised her arms, wincing from the pain. Alexander did the same. Marcus stayed on the ground, defeated, bleeding, broken. Sirens wailed in the distance, backup arriving. This was over. Or so McKenna thought, because just as she started to relax, just as she thought they'd survived, something grabbed her ankle, hard, strong, unyielding. She looked down, saw a hand, covered in blood. emerging from behind the ventilation unit. One of the men she'd taken down earlier, the one with the knife, still alive, still fighting. He yanked, hard. McKenna's feet slipped out from under her. She fell, slid across the concrete, toward the edge of the roof. Alexander shouted her name. She clawed at the ground, trying to stop, trying to hold on. But the edge was getting closer, closer, and a hand grabbed her ankle and yanked her backward. McKenna's body scraped across rough concrete. Her nails clawed at the ground, trying to grip, trying to stop. But the man dragging her was strong, relentless, pulling her away from Alexander, away from safety, toward the shadows. "McKenna!" Alexander screamed. He lunged forward, but one of Marcus's guards grabbed him, held him back. McKenna kicked, hard. Her heel connected with the man's face. He grunted, but didn't let go. He dragged her behind the ventilation unit, out of sight, into darkness. She twisted, tried to break free, but his grip was iron. He yanked her up, slammed her against the metal wall, his hand wrapped around her throat. She gasped, stared into his eyes, cold, empty, professional. "You fight too well for a maid," he rasped. Blood dripped from his mouth. His chest heaved, injured but still dangerous. "Who trained you?" McKenna didn't answer. Couldn't. His grip was too tight. He squeezed harder. "Answer me," she choked, vision blurring, but her hands moved. Instinct, training, survival. She drove her thumb into a pressure point on his wrist. He flinched. His grip loosened just enough. She twisted free, drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over. She didn't stop. Elbow to the jaw, palm strike to the nose, kick to the ribs. He collapsed, gasping, coughing blood. McKenna stood over him, breathing hard, shoulder bleeding, body aching, but still standing. The man looked up at her. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "You're trained," he whispered. "Military? Special ops?" McKenna said nothing. He coughed, smiled through the blood. "Doesn't matter. You think this ends with Marcus? With Luca? You're wrong. What are you talking about? This goes deeper," he said. "Higher. People you'll never touch, never see, never stop." McKenna's chest tightened. "Who?" The man's smile widened. "You already know. You just don't want to admit it. Tell me. Government, corporations, people who decide wars and elections, and who lives and who dies." He coughed again. "You think you saved Alexander? You just painted a target on both your backs." McKenna's stomach twisted. "They'll come for you," the man continued. "Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But they'll come. And when they do, there won't be a rooftop to run to." Before McKenna could respond, footsteps echoed behind her. She spun, hand reaching for a weapon she didn't have. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, familiar, holding a gun. Jonah. McKenna's heart stopped. He was supposed to be dead. She'd heard the gunshot, heard him scream, but here he was, standing, walking, alive, and his face was different now. No fear, no guilt, no desperation, just cold, empty, resolved. "Jonah," McKenna whispered. He didn't respond, just stepped closer, gun raised, steady. Alexander appeared around the corner, saw Jonah, froze. "You're alive," Alexander said. "They didn't kill you." "No," Jonah said quietly. "They didn't." McKenna's mind raced, connecting pieces, replaying the scene in the hallway, the gunshot, Jonah's scream. It was fake, all of it. "You set us up," McKenna said, her voice hollow. Again, Jonah's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "I had to. They said they'd kill my wife if I didn't follow through." "So you chose her over us," Alexander said. "Yes." The word hung heavy. True. Unforgivable. Alexander stepped forward. "Jonah, you don't have to do this. We sent the files. The evidence is out there. It's over." Jonah shook his head. "It's not over. Not for me. They'll still kill her if I don't finish the job." "What job?" Makina asked. Jonah's eyes met hers, sad, broken, but determined. Bringing you both to them. Alive. Makina's blood ran cold. Who's them? Jonah didn't answer, just motioned with the gun. Walk. Toward the door. Slowly. Makina didn't move. We can protect your wife. Put her in witness protection. Get her somewhere safe. You think witness protection stops them? Jonah laughed, bitter, hopeless. They have people everywhere, police, FBI, even the marshals. There's nowhere she'd be safe. Then run, Alexander said. Take her and disappear. With what money? What resources? Jonah's voice cracked. I'm nobody. They're everyone. Silence. Makina understood now. Jonah wasn't evil. He was trapped, caught between impossible choices. Save his wife or save them. And he'd chosen blood. She couldn't even blame him. I'm sorry, Jonah whispered. I really am. But I can't let her die. He stepped closer, gun steady, finger on the trigger. Alexander moved in front of Makina, shielding her. If you're going to shoot someone, shoot me, Alexander said. She's just trying to survive. So am I, Jonah said. The helicopter above them descended. Lower, closer. The police were seconds away from landing. Jonah's eyes flicked up, then back to them. We're out of time, he said. Come with me now, or I shoot you both and drag your bodies. Makina's mind calculated. Distances, angles, options. She could rush him, maybe disarm him, maybe get Alexander to safety. Maybe die trying. But before she could move, another voice cut through the chaos. Put the gun down, Jonah. Everyone turned. Maria stood in the doorway. The housekeeping manager, the woman who'd betrayed them in the elevator, but now she was holding a gun too, and she was pointing it at Jonah. Maria, Jonah whispered. What are you? I said put it down, Maria repeated, her voice steady, cold. Jonah's face twisted. Confusion, betrayal, fear. You're with them too? Maria didn't answer, just stepped closer. Gun raised, and then she shifted, aimed the weapon away from Jonah, toward Makina and Alexander. Nobody move, she said. Makina's stomach dropped. Because now they weren't just facing one gun, they were facing two, and both were pointed at them. Jonah stared at Maria, his voice shaking. What are you doing? What I should have done from the beginning, Maria said, finishing the job. She looked at Makina, at Alexander. No emotion, no hesitation. They're paying me double what they paid you, she said to Jonah. And all I have to do is make sure they don't leave this roof alive. Jonah's face went pale. But you said, I lied, Maria interrupted. Just like you lied, just like everyone lies when survival is at stake. She cocked the gun, and he was pointing a gun at both of them. Time stopped. Makina stared at Maria, at the gun, at the cold determination in her eyes. Jonah stared too, his face pale, shocked, betrayed. Maria, he whispered, we had a deal. Deals change, Maria said. Money talks louder than promises. Alexander's voice shook. How much did they pay you? Maria's eyes flicked to him. No shame, no regret. Enough to disappear, start over, live somewhere they'll never find me. You think they'll let you live? Makina said. You think they'll just let you walk away? Maria's jaw tightened. I have insurance, files, evidence. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. Same thing Alexander tried, Makina said. And look where we are. Doubt flickered across Maria's face, just for a second. But it was there. Jonah stepped forward. Maria, listen to me. They're using you. Just like they used me. Just like they're using everyone. I don't care, Maria said, as long as I get paid. And what about your daughter? Jonah asked. You think she'll be safe when this is over? Maria's gun hand trembled, just slightly. Don't bring her into this. She's already in this, Jonah's voice cracked. The moment you took their money, you put her at risk, just like I did with my wife. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Maria's eyes glistened, but she didn't lower the gun. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do, McKenna said quietly. You always have a choice. Maria looked at her, and for a moment McKenna saw the woman she used to know, the manager who smiled in the mornings, who asked about her day, who seemed kind. But kindness doesn't survive when fear takes over. I'm sorry, Maria whispered. I really am. She aimed, finger, moving to the trigger. Jonah shouted, Wait! Everyone froze. Jonah stepped between Maria and McKenna, arms raised. If you shoot them, you're not getting out of here, he said. The police are seconds away. You'll go to prison. So will you, Maria said. I know. Jonah's voice was steady now, resigned. But at least I won't die a murderer. Maria's eyes narrowed. Move. No. I said move. Make me. The helicopter descended. Boots hit the roof. Voices shouting. Police! Drop your weapons! Maria's eyes darted up. Panic flashing across her face. She was out of time. They all were. Jonah pulled something from his pocket. A small device. Black. Rectangular. With a single red button. McKenna's heart sank. She recognized it. Remote override. The same kind Marcus had used. Jonah, she said slowly. What are you doing? Jonah looked at her, sad, broken, but determined. What I should have done from the start. Choosing a side. He pressed the button. A mechanical sound echoed across the roof, louder than before, more final. Every door, every exit, every access point, sealed. Heavy metal shutters slammed down over the roof access door, over the emergency stairs, over the helicopter landing zone. The police officers who'd just landed shouted, tried to pull the doors open. Nothing moved. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled over the speaker. Exits are sealed. We can't get in. Jonah looked at Maria, at McKenna, at Alexander. Now we're all trapped, he said quietly. No one leaves. No one escapes. Maria's face twisted with rage. What did you do? I bought time, Jonah said. For them, for us, for everyone to realize that the people paying us are the real enemy. You idiot, Maria screamed. They'll kill us all now. Maybe, Jonah said, but at least we'll die knowing we tried to do the right thing. Alexander stared at him, shocked, confused. Jonah. Why? Jonah's eyes filled with tears. Because I'm tired of being afraid, tired of hurting people to save myself, tired of being a coward. He looked at McKenna. You risked everything to protect him, even though you didn't have to, even though no one would have blamed you for running. McKenna said nothing, just watched him. I want to be like that, Jonah whispered. Just once. Before it's too late. Maria lowered her gun, not because she wanted to, but because she realized the truth. They were trapped. All of them. On a rooftop, with nowhere to go and no way out. The police outside were shouting, trying to break through the sealed doors, but it would take time. Minutes. Maybe longer. Jonah turned to McKenna and Alexander. You need to know something. Luca isn't the one in charge. He never was. Alexander's voice shook. Then who is? Jonah swallowed. The people funding Project Titan, government officials, defense contractors, billionaires who don't want their names attached to anything. How do you know this? McKenna asked. Because they contacted me directly. Offered me money. Threatened my family. Told me exactly what to do and when to do it. Why you? Because I had access, trust, clearance. I was invisible, just like you. McKenna's chest tightened. Because she understood now. They'd all been pawns, used, manipulated, thrown away when they were no longer useful. When does loyalty become a weapon? When does money turn good people into monsters? When does survival cost more than dying? These are the questions that don't have easy answers. And maybe that's the point. Maria's voice was quiet now, broken. So what do? We tell the truth, Jonah said. Everything, all of it, to the police, to the media, to everyone who'll listen. And then what? Maria asked. Jonah looked at the sealed doors, at the helicopter circling above, at the city lights stretching into the distance. Then we hope someone believes us before they silence us for good. Alexander stepped forward. Jonah, thank you. Jonah nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. Before anyone could respond, a sound cut through the chaos. A phone, ringing. Jonah pulled it from his pocket, looked at the screen. His face went white. It's them, he whispered. Who? McKenna asked. The people who hired me, he answered. Put it on speaker. A voice came through. Cold, calm, emotionless. You just made a very bad decision, Jonah. Jonah's hand shook. I'm done following orders. No, the voice said. You're done breathing. All of you. The line went dead. Silence. And then McKenna heard it. A faint beeping, coming from somewhere on the roof. Her blood turned to ice. Everyone down, she screamed, but it was too late. The rooftop doors sealed shut, trapping all three of them together, and the beeping grew louder. The beeping grew louder, faster, more urgent. McKenna's eyes scanned the roof, searching, desperate. There, near the ventilation unit, a small black box, blinking red light, wires exposed, bomb. Run, she screamed, but there was nowhere to run. The doors were sealed. The edges dropped 50 stories. The helicopter couldn't land. They were trapped in a box, waiting to explode. Alexander grabbed her arm. McKenna, what do we do? Her mind raced, training kicking in, years of survival instincts calculating options. How long do we have? Maria asked, her voice shaking. McKenna ran toward the device, dropped to her knees, examined it. Timer. Digital. Counting down. 3 minutes. 42 seconds. Not enough time to disarm it. Not without tools. Not without knowing the mechanism. 3 minutes, she said. Maybe less. Jonah's face went white. Can you stop it? I don't know. She pulled at the wires. Careful. Steady. But her hands were shaking. Adrenaline. Pain. Exhaustion. One wrong move and it would detonate early. Alexander knelt beside her. Tell me what to do. Get back, she said. If this goes wrong, I'm not leaving you. Their eyes met, and in that moment everything else disappeared. The bomb, the danger, the fear, just them. Together. At the end of the world. Alexander, she whispered, I need you to survive this. Not without you. McKenna's chest tightened, because she knew the truth. She could maybe disarm it, maybe buy them time, but probably not. And if she failed, they'd all die. Maria's voice cut through. The police are still trying to break through. If we can hold on, we don't have time, Jonah said. He looked at the sealed doors, at the timer, at McKenna. This is my fault, he whispered. I should have never pressed that button. You were trying to help, Alexander said. I trapped us. You gave us a chance to tell the truth. Jonah's eyes filled with tears. What good is truth if we're dead? The timer hit 2 minutes. McKenna pulled another wire. The beeping stuttered, slowed, then sped up again. Wrong wire. She cursed, tried a different one. The beeping continued. Relentless. 1 minute. 30 seconds. Maria backed toward the edge, staring down at the city below. I'm not dying like this, she said. Not trapped. Not helpless. Don't, McKenna said. We still have time. No, we don't. Maria looked at her, at Alexander, at Jonah. I'm sorry, for everything. And then she climbed onto the ledge. Maria, no, Alexander shouted. But Maria wasn't listening anymore. She was staring down, at the lights, at the street, at freedom. Better to jump than burn, she whispered. McKenna stood. Maria, get down, We can still. The timer hit 1 minute. Maria closed her eyes, took a breath, and stepped forward. Alexander screamed, lunged, grabbed her arm, pulled her back, hard. They both fell onto the roof, Maria sobbing, Alexander holding her. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." McKenna turned back to the bomb. 45 seconds. Her fingers moved faster, pulling wires, testing circuits, following instinct more than knowledge. Jonah knelt beside her. "Let me help." "You don't know how." "Neither do you," he said, "but 2 of us might figure it out faster than 1. He was right. They worked together, pulling, testing, guessing. 30 seconds. 20. McKenna's heart pounded in her ears, louder than the beeping, louder than the helicopter, louder than everything. Alexander stood, walked toward them, calm, steady. McKenna. She didn't look up. Couldn't. Too focused. "McKenna, stop." "I'm almost." "Stop." Something in his voice made her pause, made her look up. Alexander was smiling, sad, peaceful, resigned. "What are you doing?" she asked, saying goodbye. Her blood turned to ice. "No, don't say that. We're going to—" "We're not," Alexander said quietly. "You know we're not." 15 seconds. McKenna's hands shook. "I can fix this. I can—" "You already did," Alexander said. "You saved me, more times than I can count, and I never got to thank you." 10 seconds. "Alexander, please." He knelt beside her, took her hands in his, stopped her from working. "If this is the end," he whispered, "I want you to know something." 5 seconds. Tears streamed down McKenna's face. "Don't. I love you." The words hit her like a bullet, like a bomb, like everything she'd ever wanted and everything she'd never let herself hope for. 3 seconds. "I've loved you since the first time you told me to take a break, since the first time you looked at me like I was human instead of just rich." 2 seconds. "And if I'm going to die, I'm glad it's next to you." 1 second. McKenna opened her mouth, to say it back, to tell him the truth, to give him the words he deserved. But before she could speak, the beeping stopped. Silence, complete, total, suffocating. Everyone froze, staring at the device. The timer read 000, but nothing happened. No explosion, no fire, no death, just silence. Jonah whispered, "Is it off?" McKenna stared at the bomb, her mind struggling to process. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe, or maybe." A voice crackled through a speaker embedded in the device. Cold, calm, the same voice from the phone. "Consider this your final warning." McKenna's stomach dropped. "You've been given a second chance. Don't waste it." The device sparked. Died. The light went dark. It wasn't a bomb. It was a message. And the message was clear. They weren't important enough to kill yet. They were important enough to terrify. Alexander pulled McKenna close, held her. She buried her face in his chest, shaking, crying, alive. "It's over," he whispered. "We're okay." But McKenna knew better, because as she looked up, she saw something that made her freeze. A figure, standing on the opposite side of the roof, emerging from the shadows. Someone who'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting. And Alexander whispered something that made her freeze. "That's him. That's the man who started all of this." The figure stepped into the light. Tall, silver hair, expensive suit, face weathered by decades of power and secrets. McKenna's breath caught. She didn't recognize him, but Alexander did. His entire body went rigid, his face drained of color. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." The man smiled. Cold, calculating, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. "Hello, Alexander." Alexander's voice cracked. "Senator Graves?" McKenna's stomach dropped. Senator. Government official. One of the most powerful men in the country. The man who'd been pulling all the strings. Graves walked closer, slow, confident, like he owned the rooftop, like he owned them. "I must say, you've been quite difficult to contain," Graves said. "Most people would have died quietly, but you just keep fighting." Alexander's fists clenched. "You ordered this. All of it. The attacks. The bombs. Luca." "Luca was useful," Graves said. "Greedy. Easy to manipulate, but ultimately expendable." "Why?" Alexander's voice shook with rage. "Why do all this?" "Because you threatened something far bigger than yourself," Graves said. "Project Titan. Billions of dollars, decades of planning, careers, legacies, power." "It's illegal," Alexander said. "Corrupt." "It's necessary," Graves corrected. "The world doesn't run on morals, Alexander. It runs on control, and you were becoming a problem." McKenna stepped forward, her voice steady. "Dangerous. So you tried to kill him." Graves looked at her, really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. "And who are you? The maid who thinks she's a soldier?" "I'm the woman who's going to make sure you pay for this." Graves laughed. "With what evidence? The files Alexander sent? Already buried, deleted, erased. Money buys silence, and I have more money than you can imagine." "You can't erase the truth," McKenna said. "Watch me." He pulled a phone from his pocket, pressed a button, spoke calmly. "It's done. Send the extraction team." McKenna's heart raced. Extraction. They were taking Alexander, and probably killing everyone else. She glanced at Jonah, at Maria, at the sealed doors. They had seconds, maybe less. Alexander stepped between McKenna and Graves, his voice firm now, resolved. "You're not taking me, and you're not hurting her." Graves raised an eyebrow. "Her? The maid?" "Her name is McKenna," Alexander said, "and she's worth 1,000 of you." McKenna's chest tightened, because in that moment she realized something she'd been fighting for months. She loved him. Not because he was rich, not because he was kind, but because he saw her, really saw her. When the rest of the world looked through her like glass, Alexander turned to her, his eyes soft, honest. "McKenna, I need you to know something." "Alexander, don't. I love you," he said. "I've loved you since the first morning you smiled at me, since the first time you told me I needed to rest, since the first time I realized you were the only real thing in my life." Tears filled her eyes. "Alexander, I don't care that you were a maid. I don't care about your past. I don't care about any of it. I just care about you." Her voice broke. "You don't know my past. Then tell me, later, when we survive this, tell me everything, and I'll still love you." McKenna's heart shattered and healed at the same time, because no one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever loved her without conditions, without fear, without judgment. She stepped closer, took his face in her hands. "I chose to protect you," she whispered, "not because it was my job, not because you paid me, but because from the moment I met you, I knew you were worth saving." Alexander's eyes filled with tears. "McKenna, and I love you too," she said, "even though I tried not to, even though I knew it was dangerous, even though I told myself it was impossible." They kissed, soft, desperate, like the world was ending, and this was the last moment they'd ever have. And maybe it was, because when they pulled apart, Graves was aiming a gun at them. "How touching," he said, "but love doesn't stop bullets." McKenna moved without thinking. Instinct, training, survival. She shoved Alexander sideways, lunged at Graves, closed the distance before he could fire. Her hand grabbed his wrist, twisted. The gun fired into the air. They struggled, rolling, fighting. Graves was older, but trained, military. He knew how to fight, but so did McKenna. She drove her knee into his ribs. He grunted, elbowed her face. She tasted blood. The gun skittered across the roof, out of reach. Jonah ran toward it, grabbed it, turned, aimed at Graves. "Get off her," he shouted. Graves looked up, smiled. You don't have the courage. Jonah's hand shook. You're wrong. Then prove it. Silence, heavy, suffocating. And then Jonah fired. The gunshot echoed across the rooftop. Loud, final, devastating. McKenna felt the impact, felt the heat, felt the world tilt. She looked down, expecting blood, expecting pain. But the bullet hadn't hit her. It had hit Marcus, the head of security, the man who'd betrayed them from the beginning. He stood behind Graves, eyes wide, blood spreading across his chest. He looked down at the wound, then at Jonah, then at McKenna. I was just following orders, he whispered, and then he collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. Graves stared at the body, then at Jonah, his face twisted with rage. You just killed my insurance, he snarled. Jonah's hand shook, but he kept the gun raised. Good. Graves lunged, fast, desperate, grabbed Jonah's wrist. They struggled. The gun fired again. The bullet went wild. McKenna scrambled to her feet, ran toward them, but before she could reach them, the sealed rooftop door exploded. Metal flew. Smoke filled the air. Police poured through. Dozens of them, guns drawn, shouting orders. Everyone down, hands up. Graves released Jonah, stepped back, raised his hands, calm, composed, like he'd done this 1,000 times. Officers, he said smoothly, thank God you're here. These people attacked me, tried to kill me. McKenna's stomach dropped. He's lying, Alexander shouted. He's the one behind everything. But Graves pulled out a badge, federal ID, senator credentials. I'm Senator Richard Graves. These individuals are domestic terrorists. I have evidence, recordings, everything you need. The lead officer hesitated, looked at Graves, at McKenna, at Alexander. Senator, are you hurt? I'm fine, but these people need to be arrested immediately. McKenna's fists clenched because she knew what was happening. Graves had power, connections, money, and they had nothing but the truth. And truth didn't matter when the man lying had a badge. But before the officers could move, another voice cut through the chaos. Actually, you're wrong about everything. Everyone turned. Luca stepped through the smoke, clothes torn, face bruised, but alive, walking, smiling. Alexander's face went pale. Luca looked at his brother, at McKenna, at Graves. I think it's time everyone knew the real story. Graves's eyes narrowed. Luca, what are you doing? What I should have done from the start, telling the truth. He pulled out a phone, pressed play. Recording started. Graves's voice, clear, unmistakable. Eliminate Alexander Cross. Make it look like an accident, and if anyone gets in the way, kill them too. The officers froze, staring at Graves. Graves's face twisted. That's fake. Edited. Lies. Is it? Luca said. Because I have 6 more recordings just like it, and timestamps, and bank transfers showing you paid me $3 million to kill my own brother. Silence. Heavy. Damning. The lead officer stepped toward Graves. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with us. Graves's calm shattered. You don't understand. This is bigger than him. Bigger than all of you. If Alexander testifies, the entire defense industry collapses. Jobs disappear, contracts fail, the economy— Shut up, the officer said. You're under arrest. Graves was cuffed, dragged away, still shouting, still threatening, still believing his money would save him. McKenna exhaled, relief flooding through her. It was over. Finally, over. Alexander walked toward Luca, stopped a few feet away. Why? He asked quietly. Why help us now? Luca's eyes filled with something like regret. Because I realized something when I was hanging off that building, scared, alone, knowing I might die. What? That money doesn't matter if you lose yourself to get it. Alexander stared at his brother, searching for the lie, but he didn't find one. I'm sorry, Luca whispered. For everything. Alexander nodded, slowly. We'll talk. Later. When this is over. Luca smiled, sad, broken, but real. I'd like that. The officers started clearing the roof, taking statements, securing evidence. McKenna stood near the edge, staring at the city, at the lights, at the life she'd fought so hard to protect. Alexander walked up beside her, took her hand. We did it, he said. Yeah, she whispered. We did. What happens now? McKenna looked at him, at the man she'd saved, the man she'd fallen for, the man who'd changed everything. I don't know, she said, but whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Alexander smiled, kissed her forehead, held her close, and for the first time in years, McKenna felt safe. But as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Luca watched from across the roof, and his expression changed. The regret disappeared. The guilt vanished, replaced by something cold, calculated, victorious. He pulled out his phone, sent a single text. It's done. She trusts him now. A response came back immediately. Good. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Luca looked at McKenna, at Alexander, at the woman who'd fought so hard to save a man she thought was the target. And he smiled. Because Graves was never the mastermind. Luca was never the puppet. And Alexander was never the real target. This entire operation, every attack, every betrayal, every moment of chaos, it was all designed for one purpose, to get close to McKenna, to study her, to test her, to see if the rumors were true, that she was Kione Amani, the ghost of Nairobi, the assassin, who disappeared 5 years ago after taking down an entire cartel, the woman a dozen governments had been searching for, the woman worth more than any billionaire, any senator, any conspiracy, because McKenna wasn't just a maid who knew how to fight, she was a weapon, a legend, a ghost, and now they'd found her. Luca's phone buzzed again, another message. Prepare the extraction team. We take her tomorrow night. Alive. Luca slipped the phone back into his pocket, walked toward the exit, glanced back one last time, at McKenna, smiling, holding Alexander, thinking she was safe, and Luca whispered to himself, You were never the real target. She was. Sometimes the story you think you're watching isn't the story at all. Sometimes the hero was the target from the beginning, and sometimes the people you save are the ones who've been hunting you all along. If this story shook you, twisted you, made you question everything, share it, because some truths are too big to keep quiet.